One day, a 23-year-old man visited the 18th century influential music composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and told him, "I want to write symphonies." Mozart asked him, "How old are you?" The guy answered, "I am 23. "Oh, you're too young to write symphonies," Mozart told him. The young man was surprised and protested. "But you were writing symphonies when you were 10 years old." Mozart then replied, "But I wasn't asking other people how to do it." Listen again to that reply. But I wasn't asking other people how to do it. The reason why most of you watching this video will never find your passion is that you're asking other people how to find your passion. I'm sorry, but the reason why you have never found your passion is that you're watching videos on how to find your passion. So, allow me to explain this with a simple story. On July 12th, 1895, Buckminster Fuller was born. As a young boy, Fuller was always on the move, trying things and making mistakes. For example, he would go into the wood and gather different materials, then make things and tools out of those materials. He experimented with designing a new apparatus for human propulsion of small boats, and by age 12, he had invented a push-pull system for propelling a rowboat. When he was dissatisfied with the way geometry was taught in school, he pioneered synergetics. Fuller learned how to use the press brake, stretch press, and other tools because he was always getting his hands dirty. As he grew up, Fuller worked in Canada as a mechanic in a textile mill, and later as a laborer in the meatpacking industry. He joined the U.S. Navy in World War I and worked as a shipboard radio operator and as an editor of a publication, and also as commander of the crash rescue boat. After discharge, he worked again in the meatpacking industry, acquiring management experience. In 1922, Fuller and his father-in-law, James M. Hewlett, started a company and later filed for a patent of the stockade building system on October 8, 1926. Unfortunately, the company failed in 1927 and left Fuller in a bad financial situation. At 32, he was depressed and even considered suicide, but he miraculously got himself started all over again. Fuller accepted a job decorating the interior of a cafe in exchange for meals and gave informal lectures several times a week just to keep the body and soul together. And then a miracle happens. Between 1948 and 1949, Fuller taught at Black Mountain College in North Carolina, and while there he began reinventing a project that would make him famous, the geodesic dome. Fuller at this point discovered that his true love was in making, building, and inventing things, not in building businesses. He perfected the geodesic dome, which made him famous, and from there he became a successful architect, systems theorist, and author of more than 30 books. Now, let's think about how Buckminster Fuller found his passion. It all started when, as a kid, he would go into the woods, pick up materials, and try to make tools from them. He then learned how to use the press brake, stretch press, and other equipment. Working as a mechanic, joining the Navy, working as a laborer in the meat industry, teaching, and even partying, starting a business and trying to run it. By getting involved with so many things, Fuller, though failed in many things, ended up knowing what he was passionate about. Study through history have shown that the only way most of us can find our passion or purpose is by trying many things. If you know Julia Child, for example, you might think of her as a 20th century successful cook. What you might not know, however, was that Child was a tennis player. Oh yeah, she played golf and even basketball. She wanted to join the army, but she was too tall, so she joined OSS, a military intelligence agency, in 1942. She worked as a typist and a top-secret researcher. She then worked as a copywriter for the advertising department of W&J Sloan. Child never knew that her passion lies in the kitchen until around 1950 when she ate at La Couronne in Rouen, France. She went from there to build a career as a cook, a television personality, and author of many books about cooking. You know Vera Wang to be a fashion designer, but that was after messing around with a few things. Robert Greene had to mess around with more than 50 jobs before he found his place as a writer in 1997. Except you were born into a musical family like Mozart and Justin Bieber, and you fall in love with music, or you're born into a golf-loving family and end up being Tiger Woods. I mean, except you are among the few people in the world whose childhood gets them hooked with something they're passionate about, then you'll have to get into the bush to find your passion. I'm sorry, but you'll never know what your passion is by watching some boring YouTube videos like this one. You'll actually have to step out. You'll have to get your hands dirty. You'll have to experiment. You'll have to try things. Many things, in fact. I mean, the formula to discover your passion is so simple, I wonder why you need a video before you figure it out. Think about this. What is your favorite food? Most of you watching this video have one or two favorite foods. So, let's find out how you get to choose that food as being your favorite. First, you started your life with breast milk of your mother, then followed by cow milk. Then if you're a Nigerian like me, you're given pap as a kid. Then you started eating rice, beans, fish, pounded yam, and so on. And by the time you're 5, you've tried many foods, and that's why you knew which food you liked and which food you hated. At age 17, you've been exposed to even much more food, and now your childhood favorite food may have changed. But you get the point. The only way any one of us knows our favorite food is by eating so many. If all your life you've been caged in a territory where pizza is the only food available, how in the world would you know the food you like the most? And that's the mistake so many people make. Their life is so straightforward, they never get into the bush. These people go to primary school, high school, and university, and then get a job after school. They never try different things. How in the world are you supposed to know what you're passionate about? Let's look at another example. Friendships or relationships. Many of you watching this video have someone you consider your best friend or your lover. But how exactly did you get to conclude that someone is your best friend? Well, you get out, meet people, and make friends. It's after you've met people and hated a few of them that you know Frances or Elizabeth is your best friend. The same thing happens with almost everything in our life. You don't get to know your favorite color until you try different clothes and look at yourself in the mirror. In the same light, you don't get to find your passion until you try different things. Now, let's talk about the reasons why most people don't know what they are passionate about. The first reason is what I call consumption-centric childhood. For most people, their childhood and teenage years were all about consumption. According to a children's health poll of 963 parents done by the C.S. Mott Children's Hospital National Poll, 86% of parents confirmed that their teenage boys are spending about 3 hours every day on video games. According to Common Sense Media Research, which surveyed 2,658 children between the ages of 8 and 12, are spending 6 hours every day on social media, and teenagers spend overall 9 hours every day on the internet. While scientific studies have found that spending too much time on screen leads to emotional, social, and attention problems, and even obesity and crime in children, another negative side nobody's talking about is that people who spend all their teenage years consuming are less likely to discover what they're passionate about. When I was around 12 years old, I would go and buy raw corn early in the morning before school, roast it after school, and sell them at 100% profit. When I was around 14, I would leave my parents' home on Saturdays and sit down in a lonely classroom to write. I would write for hours before I returned home. At age 15, I bought a bicycle and would take it to a field after school, where my mates would pay me to ride my bicycle. At 16, I started a photography business. I dared a commercial motorcycle business when I was around 18 and made my first stock investment at 19. At 21, I went fully into the business world, tried different things and failed in most of them. But then, because you pull yourself out and try many things, your passion will naturally find you. If your entire teenage years are about consuming what other people created, then you might not know what you're passionate about. The second reason why many people don't find their passion is that our school system focuses too much on learning by memorizing facts instead of doing. I don't know about your country, but in my country, most things are learned in the classroom and by memorization. Young people don't get out to learn biology in the garden, law in the courtroom, or entrepreneurship by building a business. Because people spend their first 20 years hardly getting involved with life, trying to build things or do practical things in the world, it's almost impossible to know what they truly love to do. The third reason why most people don't find their passion is that, even as adults, they consume too much of what other people create. Generally, there are two groups of people in the world, regardless of age or race: the people who consume and the people who create. People who consume get their dopamine from consumption and then get addicted to consuming, while people who create get their dopamine from creating and also get addicted to that. People who are addicted to doing and creating things never have a problem finding their passion. In fact, it's their passion that often finds them, because they're always out there trying things, making mistakes, building stuff, and acquiring skills. The easiest way to find what you're passionate about is to reduce your consumption and start creating, experimenting, and acquiring skills. Spend less time consuming social media, movies, and things like that. Spend a few hours every day creating, trying things, and acquiring a new skill. Reduce your consumption. Increase your creation and skill acquisition. You will make many mistakes, come across things you don't like, and even experience some failures. But if you dedicate a few hours every day to this process, you will soon find what you're truly passionate about. In the subsequent video, I'll be talking about how to make money from your passion. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Courage.